Welcome to Unity this morning. It's Palm Sunday today, so we're going to do the work of starting the whole process of going into Good Friday and into the resurrection. We're going through the death process, that letting go of the things that no longer serve us and signing up with the frailty of the world right now and finding this inner Christ potential in us as we resurrect the things that are great and wonderful about us being these spiritual beings on this journey. So I just want to welcome you all for being here today. My name is Cintisha Groverland, and I'm the spiritual leader here, and I share this platform with Jack, who will be speaking today. Jack Groverland, who's the minister emeritus. Do we have anybody that's new today that's visiting our church for the first time? Hi, welcome. If you keep your hand up, they'll have a gift for you. Anybody meeting us from another Unity church, visiting for the first time? All right, well, we're really glad you're here. We're going to start by singing. They say to sing is to pray twice. We're going to sing about all the many faces of God and the beauty of all of it. And join us, sing with us. It is. So we have a couple of announcements coming up. We have the Good Friday service this Friday at 7 o'clock. This is the only service that we take communion in the entire year. And a lot of people say this is one of the more holy, more sacred services that we hold of the year. We have beautiful soloists at it, and you won't want to miss that. And that's at 7. And then next Sunday is Easter Sunday, and you have to have a ticket to get in, but they're free, so you just pick them up in the lobby on your way out for the 9 or the 11 a.m. service. And the children are going to be having an Easter egg hunt outside at 10 between the services, so you can bring the kids to Sunday school first or second service, and then there's the egg hunt outside, which is going to be very special, and there's been a lot of planning put into that. And we also always want to let you know that we have prayer partners available to you at the end of the service. If you're facing a challenge, you just stay seated in your seat at the completion of the service, and our prayer partner will come and pray with you today. All right, so I want to invite out a few of our performing members of our group that will be singing on Easter. We gave many of them the day off today because they've been at rehearsals every day. So these are the tried and true. They came and said, we'll do Palm Sunday as well. All right, so many of you probably have heard this song before. It just repeats itself. It's not hard to sing. We're going to ask you all to stand, and we're going to sing this together.
Hosanna, Hosanna, blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. Hosanna, Hosanna, blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. Hosanna, Hosanna, blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. Hosanna, Hosanna, blessed
signed by Jack Groverland today.
Have you ever seen Cinticia move her own pulpit? I don't get any respect. I should be used to it by now. Good morning, everyone.
You're a mover. You're a mover.
I'm a mover. Okay. Thank you very much, Tom. Positive thought. So, good morning, everyone. This morning I want to start with a true story. I wasn't always a minister. Back in my early adulthood, in my early life, I mean my early misbegotten life, in my youth, I wasn't the most moral, upstanding person. But after that, I got involved in theater and hung out with, actors and writers and musicians. So I was moving on in my understanding. I had a couple of roommates who were interesting actors. One of them, Doug and I, were attempting to create a certain type of an improv comedy routine to do that we might put on film. And it was going to be about the underbelly of New York City. And the underbelly of New York City at that time was on 42nd Street in New York. I know that today, 42nd Street in New York is big upscale Broadway theaters and restaurants. But back in that day, it was really just a number of broken down movie theaters, dilapidated, a drug pushing prostitute block on 42nd Street. It had, it was the underbelly of New York. It had every type of limited, dark quality that you can imagine. But my roommate and I would go to the theaters there after 11 o'clock. After 11 o'clock, those sleazy movie theaters would charge only 25 cents to get in. So you could go in and sit there, and you could stay there until it was either 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning when they would chase everybody out to have to clean the place up. To whatever degree they cleaned it up, it was nothing that came close to ever being clean. But we'd go there because it was great fun. We'd have an evening of beer and conversation and move in the theatrical circles. But about 11 o'clock, we might sometimes take off, go to those sleazy theaters. And because the repartee, the conversations that took place while the movie was on, were hilarious. The people that showed up at that movie theater at 11 o'clock and paid 25 cents to get in, all of them were drunks, drug addicts, prostitutes, angry, lost human beings. And they had no qualms about responding to the characters in the movie that they were watching. And so you had all of this going on back and forth all the time. It would get started with somebody saying, "Oh, she doesn't love him. What are you talking about? She doesn't love him. The other guy's going to win her anyway." And I can't use the kind of language they would use, and some of it was really terrible. But it was great fun. I remember a couple of incidences. One of them, this actor, I'm trying to think of his name. He's not around anymore, but he had been around for quite a while, and he was playing a detective in this. It was actually a black and white movie, and he was out on this ledge on this building, and he was going along the ledge because he was in trouble, and he had found this. He was following this case, and he was trying to think to himself, something was missing in the case. He's talking to himself saying, what did I lose? What did I lose? You need to lose some weight. That's the problem. You're not remembering because you have too much weight on your brain. And then the dialogues went on back and forth. But I'm telling you this because I want to ask you to do something in your imagination today. I want you to imagine that you were born in such a theater and raised by your parents in that theater. And your parents did nothing but pay attention to the movies that were taking place. And in those scenes that seemed bright and good, your parents seemed happy, willing to be there, going on about things. But when there was dark things taking place in those films, your parents were cast down and depressed, sometimes angry, upset. I want you to keep that in mind because I'm going to follow up on that particular illustration at the conclusion of this particular talk. Today is Palm Sunday. Churches all over the world are going to be celebrating, commemorating the final entry of Jesus into the holy city of Jerusalem. So that's what's taking place today. Of course, they call it the triumphant entry, but there's hardly a single Christian church that understands why it was triumphant. You see, on that particular entry, that was the last day of the life of Jesus. He had his Passover supper, which was the last supper with his disciples. And following, well, it was actually what the Jews call the following day, but it was at night that it was over. He went to the Garden of Gethsemane, got arrested, taken before the high priests. And he said something while he was talking to Pilate that you hear very seldom ever said. Even here in Unity. When Pilate accused him of being a king, he said to Pilate, "You say that I am a king. My kingdom, my kingship is not of this world. If my kingship were of this world, my disciples would fight for me. But my kingship is not of this world." Well, that's concerning to so many people who are not yet enlightened, because the world, as we understood it, as we're born into it, raised and educated in it, is our life, is everything. And here we are trying to follow the teachings of this master. But to follow the teachings of the master, we have to think from a higher level. We have to enter a universal level of consciousness in order to really understand what these Bible writers were trying to get across to humanity. You see, the Bible writers weren't really interested in creating the scenario that we first follow, which is the divinity of one special Jesus, the Son of God. That's what it looks like. But actually, if you look into it and you meditate upon it, it will finally reveal itself to you. It's about humanity's divinity. So that's what we're going to do today. We have to think more from a universal perspective, a metaphysical perspective. Metaphysical means beyond the time-space conception of things. It's beyond that. So what we're going to do, or try to do today, is collapse time and space. If we collapse time and space, then maybe it comes to us that the Bible writers, when they're talking about Jesus, they're really talking about the universal Christ that is at the very core nature of every human being. So they're not just they have this beautiful symbolic character called Jesus who, is carrying on, working miracles, performing cures, raising the dead. And so it's something we can identify with in the unenlightened state because he's so very human, so very physical, yet still a miracle worker. And we keep thinking he'll come back maybe someday if we're faithful enough. But that's not what the Bible writers are attempting to get across to us. Because even this symbolic character says to us, on the day of your awakening, you will know that I am in you and you are in me. And that is the truth that will make you free. Until that day, you do not know the truth that makes you free. Because you live in the thinking of the world that raised you, in the limited concept that you are strictly a body-mind in a world of separate physical phenomena that doesn't necessarily have your personal self-interests at heart. Therefore, just about everything you think and do is motivated by fear, in order that you can keep on getting on to try to make your life work, make it a little more healthy or prosperous in whatever way. But it's not the truth that will make you free. So here you have Jesus entering the holy city of God, Jerusalem. People are putting the palm leaves on the ground for him to ride in on this. Actually, it was a baby donkey. And he rides into Jerusalem. The first thing he does is he takes a whip of cords and goes into the temple, and he drives out the money changers in the temple. Who are the money changers? Well, you see, historically speaking, we think about that, we look back at it, people remember that incident because in their mind they say that's the one time. Jesus shows that he's really angry. His negative emotions, look what he did. You have to expand a little bit to understand. That scripture is not about a temple in Jerusalem, a historic place in time. It's about humanity as the temple of the living God. And the money changers, those money changers that you look at historically, that are there selling the sheep and the oxen and the doves for those who are coming in to worship because they're coming in to make a sacrifice to God. Of course, the sacrifices that they're making are animal sacrifices. And those animal sacrifices are going to the priests. They're living like, very wealthy lives. But is that really what's taking place? If the temple is humanity, who are the money changers? Now just look at the words that Jesus said after he drives them out of the temple. With their sheep and their oxen and their pigeons, he drives them out, and he stands on the steps in the archway of the temple and says, "You shall not make my Father's house a house of trade. This is a house of prayer." Now, if that's really to humanity, what is he saying? Humanity has left its understanding of the reality of this fact, that we are created. We are not self-created. We are created by the cosmic intelligence that we refer to as God. And the essence of that God is within us. From the very first book in the Bible, you are made in the image and likeness of this divine intelligence, this divine love. But we have left that. And our minds have become the house of trade, marketing. Everything's about this initial flawed interpretation of myself as being strictly a body-mind in a world of separate physical phenomena. And so I am motivated simply to try to forever make sure that I have enough things to bring harmony. I'm always seeking happiness. I'm always seeking to better my physical life in the world so that I can stand out. I can feel more important, better off than others. But that's the error of our ways. That is the underlying sin of all sins. The underlying sin of all sins is that we are born and raised in this illusionary concept of life, and we go about exploiting, being insincere, lying, fighting for, making war for, listen to it, the words that claim we are in a state of self-betrayal. We go on fighting for, manipulating, and making war for personal self-interest. And it is that we must eventually someday deal with if we're ever going to come into that happiness and true love and true peace that we have always been seeking outside of ourselves and trying to bring about. It's never going to be there for us outside until we first reconcile ourselves with the fact, listen to it, it can never go away. Take this home. We are not self-created. We are God-created. And until we recognize that, we will not be able to see that everything we look upon is God, is sacred, is worthy of another way of relating to it instead of the self-centered illusion idea of that limited self. So what do you think animal sacrifice came from? Look at how everything is distorted in the ego-centered concept of life. Animal sacrifice really is an idea of sacrificing the animal nature for a day or 2 days or for a retreat. To put away the body, physical, animal life that's ever pursuing the world and be still from that pursuit and open to tune into your divine nature, the presence of God within you. So you see, this whole historic event is Christ coming forth in the consciousness of humanity to drive out the marketplace mentality that robs people every day of feeling joy, love, peace, and truth. So I want to continue this awakening, collapsing time and space, because that's all these Bible writers were attempting to do, is wake us up to the reality that we are divine in origin and must someday become divine in expression. So let's take a close look at this from the scripture. You can read this in the Gospel of Luke, chapter 13, verses 31 to 33. At that very hour, some Pharisees came and said to him, Jesus, "Get away from here, for Herod wants to kill you." And he said to them, "Go and tell that fox, behold, I cast out demons and perform cures today and tomorrow, and the third day I finish my course. Nevertheless, I must go on my way today and tomorrow and the day following, for it cannot be that a prophet, a God-serving person, should perish away from Jerusalem." Can we take this back again, please? The Bible writers are writing to the mind of humanity. And they are speaking this way. At that very hour, the hypocrites within you, the Pharisees, come and say to you, "Get away from here, for Herod," the ego-centered idea of life, "is going to kill you." It's going to kill the Christ nature within you. Herod rules the world we live in when we're not enlightened. And he will kill your Christ consciousness. He will distract you and rob you and lead you astray every single moment of your unenlightened existence. Herod will do that to you. But the Christ divine nature speaks back. Go and tell that fox, behold, I cast out demons from humanity, and I perform cures in the human awareness today and tomorrow. And the third day I will finish my course. Nevertheless, I, this divine nature, will go my way today and tomorrow and the day following, for it cannot be, never was, or will be, that a prophet should perish away from Jerusalem. What is he saying? What is the Bible relating there? Well, let's look at this next PowerPoint. Let's have it up there. Jerusalem, a prophet cannot perish outside of Jerusalem, the holy city of God. Jesus had to go there. Every one of us will one day go there. But here's what you don't know yet. Unless you're really deeply on the path of awakening, you will know that Paul, the apostle, wrote in the book of Galatians, there are two Jerusalems. There's the Jerusalem of the physical world, which is in bondage with her children everywhere. And then there is the Jerusalem that is above. And is free. And look at this, you're never going to forget what I'm about to say. The Jerusalem above, on the higher level, away from the physical, is the mother of us all. Did you ever realize that that's in the Bible? That the Jerusalem in this higher level of awareness is the mother of us all. And that's why a true prophet, someone serving God, seeking God, can never perish outside of entering into the consciousness of God. Finally, entering into the consciousness we were born to enter into and live in and from. But the day of the prophets is past. Today, the revelation is available everywhere to us. So, this particular revelation is not something that we can just think about. It's something that calls us to a spiritual practice. Let's take a look at this in the Course in Miracles. You can read this in page 206 of the text. That's the old text. In the new edition, it's on page 222. Salvation is for the mind, and it is attained through peace. This is the only thing that can be saved, and the only way to save it. Any response other than love arises from a confusion about the what and the how of salvation, and this is the only answer. Never lose sight of this, and never allow yourself to believe, even for an instant, that there is another answer. For you will surely place yourself among the poor who do not understand that they dwell in abundance and that salvation has come. Can we take this back again, please? Salvation is for the mind of humanity and anyone who seeks it. And it is attained through peace. For the day will come when you will be so involved in making peace the priority of your awareness in your life that you will be able to bestow peace. You will be able to look past the foibles, the limitations, and the confrontations, the fear and the conflict that exists in other human beings who are not enlightened. And you'll be able to look beyond them because you will know you are one with their true nature, and you will bestow only, listen to it, compassion and love. And any response other than that is a confession that you're not awake, you're not enlightened, you haven't found your reality, and you're still adrift in the war against yourself. You're still in a state of self-betrayal, and the world owns you and interprets you, because whenever the world is going well and going according to your personal desires and your personal interests and your dictates and your demands, you have peace. But when it's not, you don't have peace. And yet you still rail about the war in Ukraine, not understanding that part of your consciousness is all about war. But it's about the war within yourself. The war between your limited interpretation of being a personal, separate self-body in a world of separate others, and the realization of your divine awareness, your spiritual understanding, and your peace. That's what's missing in the thinking of the limited thinking of the world. And so we are missing the awakening process that we should have found or should find somewhere along the way on our journey. You see, we've become so distracted, so misled by the ego-centered consciousness of self that has been drummed into us. That consciousness is that you are a separate body, mind, and a world of separate others, and that you have to get that education, and you have to get that money, and you have to get that popularity, and you have to get that prestige, because that makes you, that makes you right with life. And so, that divine consciousness is replaced by Google, by your cell phones, your computers, and you think ultimately someday we'll make a computer will have enough information to give us that we'll finally feel okay in a world where no one feels okay, in a world without insight, without guidance, without peace, without love. But we'll finally figure it out, because the intellect has become the God of our world. So we have to become smarter. But to that, Eckhart Tolle says it very carefully and very perfectly. Can we have this next PowerPoint? You can read this in his book, Stillness Speaks, on page 9. Do you need more knowledge? Is more information going to save the world? Or faster computers? More scientific or intellectual analysis? Is it not wisdom that humanity needs most at this time? But what is wisdom, and where is it to be found? Wisdom comes with the ability to be still. What? Don't tell me to turn off my cell phone. Don't tell me to turn off my computer. Don't tell me to turn off my television. To be still, what are you talking about? Just be still. Just look and just listen. No more is needed. Being still, looking, and listening activates the non-conceptual intelligence within you. Let stillness direct the words and actions of your being, of your life. So when we say it's incumbent upon everyone to carry on a spiritual practice, which includes a period of meditation, maybe more than one period of meditation each day, where you sit down and you become still and you let the world just kind of drift away. You don't try to force the thinking of the world out of your mind. You don't have to do that. You just have to sit still and begin in that moment to feel the majesty of being alive. If when everything is going wrong, you just say, hey, I'm still breathing. The majesty of being alive, having breath, having thought, reflecting. You still have that. It's still there. When you put away all the distractions and all the noise that everybody's making, the money changers never stop making the noise because they want to sell you something else, bring you something else, mislead you to something else. The money changers haven't stopped. They never stop. They're inside your head. You have to take a whip of cords. You have to allow the Christ consciousness, those few moments of silence, to speak to you and to say, wake up, you were born to be free, unafraid, and to feel beloved every moment of your life. Until you feel that, you are not truly alive. So, the children of God have been beguiled, misled, through a mind that is identified with the personal body life. The world is filled with fear, violence, conflict, vengeance, and war. And what I'm going to share with you now is something that is so odd to say that you may forget everything else of what I've said today. But you won't be able to forget this because of the word I will use. The world is filled with war, vengeance, hate, only because mankind has entered an hallucination. We are living in a hallucination in the unenlightened state. And it has robbed you of peace, any kind of peace. And it will always cheat you. And will always manipulate you. As long as that identification that you were given from your birth on up, as being strictly a personal body life in a world of separate others, where can you find compassion in that? Where can you find peace in that? Where can you find being a divine being, sharing the love of God in that? You can't find it anywhere. It's all about personal self-interest. So, that's why you have the war. That's why you have the vengeance. This war is a war within your own consciousness. And there will never be able to, no one will ever be able to bring peace by forcing it on the human beings outside. Peace can only come to any individual who takes to task his or her own awareness and realizes you are living in the miracle of the presence of your divinity. And you have life to live fully and completely and successfully and joyfully forever. But to get there requires spiritual practice. Now I want to take you back to the whole concept of this movie theater. Because this will help you. You're born and raised in this movie theater. And everyone that raised you and educated you is still watching the movies that come in. And still reacting as though they're part of the cast that's in that film. But then someone comes in and turns off the projector, stands up on the stage, and says to you, this is not reality. Follow me. And leads you outside of that movie theater. Now you've been in there for what? 20, 30, 40, 50 years. Leads you outside the movie theater and you step into the sunlight of a new day. And you see, there's a whole other world there. A world of consideration, forgiveness, kindness, peace, truth, wisdom, insight, how to live, joy of living. Because in that world, everyone knows this. Being alive is a miracle. Everything is sacred. Everything is God. Everything is worthy of your patience, your consideration, your compassion, and your peace. But you only give that out when your desires are being met. What if you were to give that out because it is the priority of knowing yourself to be one with God? To be one with God. Living from the consciousness of being one with God. Living as Christ consciousness. Not waiting for some Christ to come on a distant day and fix you up, but taking to task your own awareness today and allowing yourself to enter into the consciousness of God. And allow that consciousness to live in and through you. And then discovering that this only is true life. The life we were born, created to live. Everything else is part of the hallucination, which at some point you have to leave behind if you're going to find life. It doesn't mean you leave behind forever. You can go back into the theater once you know that you can enter into this Christ consciousness through your spiritual practice. And you carry that back into the theater with you. And you're so willing then to forgive and bless and care and be compassionate towards those who are not yet awake. So, maybe you've been too long in the theater to know yet that you are a divine being called to manifest that divinity through the life you are living. You may not know that fully yet, but know this. Can we have this final slide from A Course in Miracles? On 435 in the old text, 467 in the new edition. Brother and sister, the war against yourself is almost over. The journey's end is at the place of peace. Would you not accept the peace offered you here? This enemy you fought as an intruder on your peace is here transformed before your sight into the giver of peace. Your enemy was God himself, to whom all conflict, triumph, and attack of any kind are all unknown. He loves you perfectly, completely, and eternally. The Son of God at war with his Creator is a condition as ridiculous as nature, roaring against the wind in anger, proclaiming it is part of itself no more. Can we take this back again, please? Brothers and sisters, the war against yourself is almost over. The journey's end is at the place of peace. What that means very clearly is when you arrive at the place where you can bestow peace, when you have so practiced the presence of feeling good and feeling okay and not being concerned because you can make others feel good and okay, and you want them to feel good and okay too, that you have the ability to look past any seeming limitation that other people might be manifesting in their lives. Can you imagine the day, living in that one day, looking past all the seeming foibles, limitations, all the anger, the upset, the conflict, looking past it, because your priority now is peace. Mystical peace that has nothing to do with circumstances, glorifying your personal self-interests, meeting your desires and your demands. Imagine, what did you do? You stepped out of the theater where that takes place. into the sunlight. And you've found such joy and happiness in being an emissary of the living God that now you have no concerns whatsoever. The world cannot take away from you anything. You are free. So this becomes true. This war that you fought against the idea of God, which the world is still fighting. Why is it fighting against God? Think to yourself, why possibly are you fighting against God? What one thing made you want to not involve yourself with God? What one thing? What's the most feared word in the whole Western culture? Conscience. Conscience. Nobody wants to be involved with good conscience because it gets in the way of personal self-interest, manipulating, cheating, robbing, and stealing from everybody else that it can. We'll take a few moments for meditation together. Oh boy, did I run over? No. I'm good. That war continues until we take to task our own awareness. Excuse me. Take a couple of deep breaths. As you release the breath, release any cares and concerns you may have brought with you. Just for this moment or two, feel okay. For we are okay in whatever state of mind we might be manifesting the life we are living. There is no judgment. And as we become aware of being present, fully present, unafraid, we recognize the breath of life. Breathing is a miracle, as life itself is a miracle. Breathing in the refined golden light of God, we imagine it filling our bodies from the top of our heads to the very tips of our toes. And that breath, energizing, enlightening our being, breathing in the refined golden light of life, is a miracle. It is a prayer. It is a mantra. Breathing in the refined golden light of life, realizing it filling the body and expanding beyond the body to the very soul that surrounds us. The light of God, restoring harmony and peace, compassion, forgiveness, and love. breathing in the refined golden light of life. Remembering to breathe when a thought of agitation arises. Restoring the breath of life in the body, in the mind. We feel the expansion into that divine estate, into that presence of God. And that we become now, here and now, emissaries of divine peace. Breathing is a prayer. Breathing is a mantra. Remembering to breathe when limited appearances arise in our presence. Remembering to breathe and to awaken and to know I am here as an emissary of light. It is not I who fully live, but Christ who lives in me and through me. Breathing is a miracle, a mantra, a prayer that opens the awareness to that divine presence of my reality. And so I am capable of bestowing peace. And I recognize this peace as the proof of the presence of the divine. Remembering to breathe the refined golden light of life. Being awake to bestow peace, to forgive, forget, and bless. For now we know what this Master Christ consciousness stated to all humanity, the temple of the living God, all humanity. It speaks, you are the light of the world. Let your light so shine that others may see the divine presence operating within your consciousness, and may glorify that divine presence in themselves. And for this opportunity in every moment, we give thanks. To this we say, Amen. We will take an offering for unity now. Those of you that are tuning in online, you can scroll down to that place that says donate. Or you can donate in any fashion that you see up here on this particular screen. Let's just bring to mind that financial gift that we would like to make to the truth of Unity of Boulder. And let's bless that financial gift with this prayer. Divine love, through me, blesses and multiplies all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive, because I give.
We want to remind you that we want you to sing with us, so you'll get the gist of the song. It's from Godspell. I'm sure you've all heard it, so once you recognize it, join us.
Prepare ye the way of the Lord. Prepare ye the way of the Lord. Prepare ye the way of the Lord.
We want you to all stand. We're going to close this service. We want to remind you to get your tickets for the Easter production, where we have many, many wonderful soloists next Sunday with amazing lighting and message. So the services are at 9/11. Just pick up your tickets on your way out, and we're going to sing I Release.
The Good Friday service.
Yes, I've already announced that at the first beginning. Thanks. Let's all rise and close with I Release and I Let Go.
I release and I let go. I let the Spirit run my life, and my heart is open wide. Yes, I'm only here for God. No more struggle, no more strife. With my faith I see the light. I am free in the Spirit. Yes, I'm only here for God. I release.
wonderful food and social time, so let's all gather and let's build this community.